Sit Down Before Reading, a memoir, by me, Dave Bexfield. Chapter 1. Sit Down Before Reading. Zebra found. Sit down before reading, sorry. That's the exact subject line of the email I sent, the one that would ultimately save my life. To be clear, I am not an exotic pet detective, an errant-minded zookeeper with a penchant for leaving gates open, or a dad on the desperate hunt, again, for Zeeby, his 2-year-old stuffed zebra that never leaves her side, at least not after that one time when all holy hell broke loose. For this purpose, Wikipedia defines zebra as slang for arriving at a surprising, often exotic, medical diagnosis when a more commonplace explanation is more likely. Basically, if you are not on an African savanna, those hoofbeats you hear are almost certainly from a horse, not a black and white striped equine. That's how I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 17 years ago. That's how most people get diagnosed with MS. The diagnosis fits when no other diagnosis fits. There is no definitive test for the progressive neurological disease, so the process is one of elimination. When the usual suspects are culled, your donkeys, so to speak, doctors land on the demyelinating disease, ergo, the horse. It's an inexact science. If neurologists were to put on their safari hat for every case to hunt for the unlikely zebra, it would take 3 Jumanjis. The original Jumanji, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, and Jumanji The Next Level. We can all admit that's a lot of Kevin Hart. That brings me to today, and the reason I asked my doctors to strap on a pith helmet. After 15 suspected urinary tract infections in 15 months, with every possible horse nixed, it was time to start searching for the zebra that was causing this raft of unexplained UTIs. And the situation was getting dire. A wheelchair user for the better part of a decade due to uncommonly aggressive MS, I was familiar with the scourge of plodding disability, but this was different. I felt like I was in a slow-motion train wreck, plunging off a cliff into an active volcano filled with lava-resistant piranha. Laura and I were desperate for answers, but when my urologist sat us down to discuss her zoological findings, I wondered, was it a Grevy's zebra native to Kenya and Ethiopia? A Burchell zebra found south of Ethiopia through East Africa? A mountain zebra common to Angola, Namibia, and South Africa? We were crestfallen. None of her prospective diagnoses remotely matched my symptoms. None. We were on our own, without a guide, which is the way it felt when I got diagnosed. Back in 2005, when the scythe of a multiple sclerosis diagnosis threatened to dismember my future, I scrambled for support online, and I couldn't find it. Friends' doom and gloom seeped into every blog, foretelling of a miserable existence. After losing 10 pounds in those first foggy weeks, clawing for hope, I realized I had all the tools to provide just that. I was a professional writer, an avid adventurer, a humorist, a fitness buff, and an unapologetic optimist. Yes, my life might get hard, but I will have a life. And I'll show other optimistic misfits with this disease how they can flourish as well, no matter what gets thrown at them. The week of my, quote, clinically definite diagnosis, the arrival of that train had been anticipated for months, I launched ActiveMSers.org, a not-for-profit website to motivate and inspire others with the disease to stay as active as possible, physically, intellectually, socially, regardless of disability. It resonated. Today, it is among the largest and longest-running personal MS websites in the world, with thousands of followers from every corner of the globe. I've been featured on the cover of magazines and inside the pages of the country's most respected publications, from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal to myriad health and MS-focused magazines. I am now one of the leading health advocates people turn to for staying active with a disability. Just one wee problem. Despite desperate attempts to slow my aggressive MS, 7 disease-modifying therapies, 5 clinical trials, and an autologous stem cell transplant, all treatments to date have failed me. I am profoundly disabled, rely on a wheelchair, and need help with most daily tasks. Between the drugs, the therapy, the research, and the medical equipment, including a handicap-accessible van, a custom standing wheelchair, and countless disability aids, over $2 million has been spent on my multiple sclerosis care to counter the ruthless progression. But nothing could counter my recent and relentless UTIs. They returned over and over and over. The last year has been the most challenging of my life, and my wife Laura's life. Unquestionably, and on so many levels, physically, mentally, socially, we've been buried by question marks, not just about my health, but about my future, our future. My body, what was left of it, started fading. Everything about my health was going wrong. All wrong. Forget everything non-essential. We needed to settle my affairs while I was still physically able. Settle them before the frayed elevator cable snapped. Our last hope was to find that zebra. Ironically, the logo for active MSers prominently features a pair of binoculars. It was about time I used them. It was now up to me, and only me, to find that zebra. Miraculously, against punishing odds, I did. It took an unbelievable sequence of events, one that plunged me into the most hellish depths of disability, one that had to unfold perfectly for me to make my discovery. There's a reason why I'm urgently telling this story and why I asked my doctors to sit down before reading that email. I'd recommend you sit down as well before taking in another word, because I've come to the sickening realization that what has been happening to me isn't just happening to me. If you've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis or another puzzling disease, it could unknowingly, stealthily, horrifyingly be happening to you too. When hunting for that zebra, I didn't just unearth the root cause of my UTIs. Missed by dozens of doctors, specialists, and researchers, I discovered the origin of all my disabling symptoms for the past 17 years. And they weren't triggered by multiple sclerosis. Because I don't have MS.